And on today's show, how acting as a facilitator gains greater participation with women. Part 3 of this week's series on what women want from financial advisors. With nationally recognized women strategist, adult educator, and adjunct professor at Roosevelt University, Dr. Barb Provo. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to InsMark, Life Specs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to day 3, Dr. Barb.
Hi, Steve.
Wow, I gotta say, if you've missed our first 2 shows, you should watch them in succession because you're gonna be out of the loop today because we're gonna kind of drop you into the show, and hopefully you've been watching so that you haven't missed anything. So you need to go back out, watch show 1 and 2 before you get to today. And today we're talking about being a facilitator. Now, I don't want to be a salesman, I want to be an engager. Today we're talking about, I don't know if I want to be so much a teacher. Children have teachers, right?
Yes, they do.
But facilitators, adults really like facilitators. Tell me, what's the yin and the yang of that?
Okay. Well, when children go to school, we consider them empty vessels that we need to fill lots of good information, all the foundational stuff, the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s. And so we even see in a lot of classrooms where all the chairs face the front and the teacher is at the front and she's going to give all the information to the students and download it to them. Now with facilitation, it's very different. So when adults come to a learning situation, they bring tons of experience, knowledge, education, information to the classroom, and a facilitator needs to know how to pull that information from who's at the table and use that information in dialogue.
Okay, so a lot of our advisors do public seminars. Some do radio, some do television. I do online. So we have different formats, and we're assuming that adults have so much experience, so much life events in their life, that they already have a lot of things that we can kind of play to and actually speak and address. Some people say, I'm glad to hear you say that, Dr. Bob, because I don't want to be a teacher, right? But at the same time, I want to be a facilitator that has some kind of educational prowess. I gotta have a little of this. So show me how does that work if I'm going to be a facilitator in a women's setting? I'm trying to engage a setting here. What does a facilitator look like? What does he act like?
So a facilitator will often come in and learn a little bit about the audience. Open the dialogue in terms of what brings you to the learning today, just like we talked about the finance, what brings you here today, and get people talking about what it is that they need from the learning or the education that's going to be going on. And then you get an idea of where are they starting from? What do they know already? What kind of experience is already in the room? And you're thinking about how can I leverage this information and knowledge that's already in the room? And it's asking good questions in dialogue and pulling from their information, pulling from their expertise, and letting them be part of the learning and learn from one another.
When I'm thinking about how we engage with adults in a live scenario, especially I've been a facilitator at many public seminar, I'm always trying to figure out how to make them feel so comfortable that they're okay with asking questions, that they don't feel dumb. How do I do that?
A lot of times it depends on the setting and the size. So if you have 200 people, that's pretty intimidating for anyone to ask a question. If you're in a much smaller group, you can build a little bit more of a rapport with them, one-on-one, get to know them. You know them, they know you, and you can build a little bit more banter back and forth. Also, I do want to mention that sometimes there's a big difference between communicating information to people and facilitating information to people. And the difference in that is that you might be telling people a lot of information that they may need, but facilitating is different. It's getting them to really go deeper with the information, understand, and use the information.
Now, if I'm and I have done this once or twice in my career where I had an all-female audience, and I'm the facilitator. And in that specific one that I'm thinking of now, I was more of an MC than more of a facilitator.
Right.
I just was kind of introducing people in and out and questioning like we're doing on our show. I want to know, because I know that so many of our advisors say, I do recognize that the purse strings of America are now going to be predominantly women, and it's going to be run by women in the country in itself from a financial point of view. It's all going this way. The trends show it.
Yeah, it's happening now.
So I need to become a facilitator. I need to create an engagement setting, and I need to be able to make my atmosphere so comfortable that people will be okay with asking questions, even if they're rudimentary.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm thinking about is how do I keep people involved when we're in a public setting like that, or even facilitating on a one-on-one? I want involvement. I want engagement. How do I create that?
It's building an atmosphere of trust. So if you sometimes if you're up on a stage right away, that whole atmosphere of somebody on the stage, that's the knowledge holder, the person with all of the information. And just being on that platform holds you up as kind of the higher entity. So there might be some better way to situate the room, where maybe somebody is walking around the room, maybe people are in small round tables where they're having discussions, and you could be roaming around that room on the same area, the same floor as them, and then asking questions of the table in smaller settings.
When we come back from the break, I want to talk about these techniques, specific facilitator techniques that you have addressed in some of the things I've heard you talk about before. We'll be right back, right after the break. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. I'm with Dr. Barb Provo. We're talking about all the ideas of being a facilitator, which is kind of changing my thinking as being a salesperson. Let's walk down some of the techniques, some of the tactical issues that you have cited. And I look at this list, a pretty nice list. Walk me through the basic idea of what you're trying to get across, especially when we're talking one-on-one with women.
Okay, so when you're talking about facilitating a conversation with a woman, and we've talked a lot about teaching, educating, giving them the information they need to make a good decision about their financial future. So you are indeed a facilitator. You're facilitating, conveying some good information. So how do you do that so she doesn't feel overwhelmed by it? Again, respect is everything. So it's creating that atmosphere of comfort that she feels comfortable in asking questions and giving her time to ask questions. But when you're providing complex information, what you'll want to do is chunk it into smaller pieces of information and check in. Let's first talk about annuities. Do you know what an annuity is? Or let me explain to you what an annuity is and how it works. Go through that piece. What questions do you have about that? Can you, check in and validate that she is following you and understanding you, and then maybe giving her another little chunk.
Or maybe why even I'm bringing it up.
Exactly.
Why am I even introducing it?
Yeah, sure. Why are you introducing it? So if you can create, when you're learning how to teach people in conversation, if you can create patterns of chunks of information, smaller pieces that people can nibble on and understand, and okay, I got that piece, now let's move on and understand. That's a really good way of not giving a cognitive load. That means way too much information that you're expecting someone to take in and kind of absorb and understand. And oftentimes if you overwhelm someone in that kind of dialogue, they're not going to go, I don't understand what you're saying. They're just going to kind of back off it and not want to be in part of the conversation.
I'm looking at one of the notes you say, and it just catches my eye. It talks about how women as clients, and it says they should outplan men due to their unique risks, but they don't.
They don't.
What's with that?
Well, and the data will show, and we've talked about this before, that women would walk away from their financial advisor if anything were to happen to the husband. And a lot of that is because they have not taken the time to learn about financial planning. They're overwhelmed by it. Again, they're keeping their eye on the daily operations of their household and their daily budget and the weekly budget. They're not thinking always long term. It's a complicated system. It can be very overwhelming. They kind of want someone just to take care of it for them, but they are not going to make good, sound financial decisions for themselves unless they understand what they need to do for their unique situation.
Well, now, most of the time, and I've heard you talk about this, women have lower financial confidence levels.
Absolutely.
So if I'm going to speak, I don't want to run, the tendency of a driver, a motive advisor, is to run over their client. They don't mean to, but I think they do. If we're pulling back and we're not in the sales process, but we're engagement, like we're talking about this whole show, how can I bring that level of confidence to talk about it so that she can have an educational experience as well, that she's actually gaining information so she can make a good decision?
Well, again, it's how you frame the conversation. So, of course, this is, we're assuming that you're at a point where you've built already some good atmosphere, where you're having some conversation, you've built some trust, you've learned a little bit about each other, you've learned a little bit about her financial needs, what she wants, All of this information is set the foundation. Now you're at a part where you're going to say, well, let me propose to you some options that we can talk about. And at that point is where you're going to start educating her on what these options are. It's always a good point to wait for her to ask some questions of you. Like, well, now tell me more about this product. Why this product? See what questions she starts asking of you to see where should I start in this conversation in terms of where she's at, and if she's already bought into this methodology of going down this road for this type of product, and then how can I provide the information she needs to make a good decision.
In the decision-making process, and I hope to get to this sometime this week, we're going to talk about how actually women actually purchase products, and maybe, and we'll get into that. That'll be a whole revelation for most of us. I'm looking at this issue of most of us that are skilled, been around a long time, or maybe even have my disease where I'm much more of a type A driver motive. I can't listen. It's hard to pull myself back in the mix and listen to her really talk through so she can tell me what she really wants to tell me. Do you think we're getting on the first pass? I don't know if I'm getting what she really wants to say yet. She's still walking through these ideas. So how do I do that? How do I actually practice this? Listen.
Well, that's a great question, and we've talked about this before because you never really take listening 101 or anything like that in school. Listening is really a skill that needs to be practice, practice, practice. And listening has some very defined abilities, and it's looking at someone in the eye, it's pausing, it's being able to just be quiet and honoring kind of that quiet space so that the woman can think through her thoughts and what she wants to say next and collect her thoughts. It's about being attentive to what she's saying and writing it down, not breaking that conversation, but when she's done speaking, asking her, can I convey back to you what I think I heard to make sure I'm validating what your needs are. So it is a process that does need to be practiced, and it's very, very important.
Before we leave the show today, Barb, I noticed that women, contrary to my thinking, to be honest with you, I didn't go there, they like content, real content.
Yeah.
Touch, feel, practical, pragmatic content. And I think sometimes we decide, oh, well, we need to be conceptual. But I also have to have real content behind it. I just can't keep talking in the idyllic all the time. I have to actually bring some concrete content. Give me a little bit of that before we leave the show.
So you're right. I mean, people start up here with the information, but what's the practicality of that? What is it that you are actually selling me, and how does that work, and how does it benefit me and my needs? That's what you need to be able to convey to her.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about so many other additional issues. That's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, your legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.